Hello, I'm Bransby. Welcome back to the Bran Cave. Today we're going to take a behind the scenes look at exactly how I do one of my acoustic cover videos for upload to YouTube. I've just finished recording one earlier, so I'm going to take you through everything I've done today, from the video to the lights to the microphone choice and the placement. And then we're going to go into the box and we're going to look at how I edit the audio down, mix the audio, edit the video, and then create a nice little thumbnail for YouTube. But first things first, we're uploading to YouTube with an audience of potentially billions, so you've got to look your best. So get your hair and makeup sorted, and then maybe speak to your stylist about what look you're going to go for today. Let's get started. Prior to making this video, I'd been recording my latest single, Is This My Home? So there were amps and mics everywhere, and that's an important thing to note about the home studio. It is everything. It's your vocal booth, or a duvet and pillow hung from the ceiling in my case. It's your control room. It's where you edit, mix, master, and it's also where I work from home these days, so it has to be versatile. Here I'm setting up 3 mics, 1 for my vocal, 2 for the guitar, and then I'm getting the cameras and the lights in place. Okay, so let's get the mic placement right. I've got the Rode NT5s, sort of roughly neck and bridge. Actually, I usually put this neck one more sort of around 12th to 14th fret, but I'm going to have a play around with it and see how it goes, see what I prefer. I'm listening to the input of these mics on these headphones at the moment, so I'm probably going to have to raise the volume on that one. I've got the Bear Dynamic Opus 81 on my vocals today. I'm using this as a pop shield. I have actually got a proper pop shield over there, but I'm going to try this one today because I think it might be less intrusive on the camera. I can't remember what these are called. Fluffies? Furries? No, they're fetishists. I don't know. But I'm going to need to raise the volume on that. So 1, 2, 3. I'm also going to use a 4th. I'm going to use the DI, the direct out on my guitar, the line out on my guitar. I've got that going into channel 4. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 inputs going on here. Let's plug that in and we can start testing out the sound. Okay, let's have a listen to see if we can get this a bit closer. Don't want to get them exactly the same distance either, because then you can start getting weird phasing issues. But yeah, that's sounding really nice now. I'm going to take the brilliance up a little bit on the EQ on the pickup on the guitar as well. This is actually sounding really nice in the headphones at the moment. Yeah, so these small condenser microphones are perfect for this sort of acoustic guitar recording. A lot of people say sort of point at this part of the body or that part of the body. Obviously I've got no that part of the body because this is a cutaway, but I find this sort of like this, so this is pointing very close. It's only a few inches away, between the sort of 12th, 14th fret of this. My problem is, of course, I do move about a bit as I play, so I have to be careful with that. But we'll, I'm probably not going to move too much from this position, so that's sounding really nice to me. So I'm happy with those placements. I'm going to try and leave them where they are and not knock them over. Right, let's sort out this vocal mic. So I'm going to put the guitar down. So these, I'll talk through these in more detail another time, but these little Alesis mic tube duos, they're called, 2 inputs, 2 outputs on each, and it's a valve mic preamp basically, and with the drive function of it, just drives the valve a little harder, and it just opens up the sound and gives this lovely sort of warmth. If you really drive it, you start to get a bit of that valve saturation, but generally speaking, I just use it to sort of open up the sound a little bit more, and it's nice. So that's what I've done now. I'm starting to get some good level on that, just talking at the moment. So I'm pretty confident about that level wise. I'll go up a little bit more. Okay, so mic placement, check, all good. Level from the DI, we haven't looked at that actually. Let's just. So I've got 4 inputs, 4 outputs on these mic preamps. Each of those outputs is going to one of the corresponding 4 inputs on the Behringer UMC404HD. So I'm not using, apart from the DI out of the guitar, I'm not using the preamps on the Behringer. So I've got them set, the first 3, 1, 2, 3. I've got those inputs on the Behringer set to line input, because the Alesis mic tube duos are doing the actual preamping. But let's just check I've got decent level on everything. So I'm looking over at Ardour now, and I can see levels coming in. So the only exception is the actual DI on the guitar is a bit low. I can turn that up here. That's pretty simple. I'm not fussed about it, because to be honest, I might well not use it at all. Yeah, that's fine. I sometimes find that it provides a nice sort of body and warmth. The preamps on this the pickups on this acoustic are pretty good, but they're not as nice as the natural sound you get from having decent mics on the actual guitar itself. But it's sometimes nice to mix it in and give that little blend of the DI with the mics. But we'll make that decision at a later date. When I come to actually mix the recording down later, we'll see what it's like, see whether it sounds nice and whether we're going to use it or not. Right, so mic placement, check. Lights, check. Camera, check. Oh, I should probably practice the song now so that I know what I'm doing. So I'm going to do that next. I'm going to practice the song for a bit. Okay, let's have a quick little check of where we are. So those are all the mics set up. We've got the Beyerdynamic Opus 81 on vocals with the big furry thing on the top. Rhodes NT5 neck and bridge. And we're using a DI from the guitar as well. Got our lights, plenty of lights, a live on air sign. Always nice to keep it bright, keep something of interest. I've got a second light or third light there, wall light there. So plenty of light going on around the place. I've got this second camera, this crappy old camcorder that I've had for decades. That's set up there. It does shoot full HD, but you'll see those cutaway shots that I do sometimes in the videos come from that. Okay, and then I'm going to sit there in a second and practice what I'm doing. And it's all being recorded live into Ardour. So yes, the video and audio are completely separate as far as the recordings go. My camera, my phone gets set up on this little tripod straight in front of the seat. And I will sync everything together later through the magic of technology. And I'll talk you through exactly how I do that in Kdenlive, syncing the audio to the video as they're recorded separately. Right, let's get this show on the road. This is the stuff I've just recorded. So we've got 4 channels here. First things first, we need to edit this down, because despite the fact that the song is probably only about 2 minutes long, you'll see I've recorded nearly 13 minutes of audio here. Oh no, 15 minutes of audio. It's amazing, really. I play this live at gigs all the time, and then as soon as I sit down in here to try and actually record it, I go to pieces. But anyway, I got there in the end, and there it is. So what I'm going to do, this is Ardour, by the way. If you've never seen Ardour before, to my mind, it's a fairly standard digital audio workstation. Yeah, that's the start point there. So and I'm just going to edit this down. And all I'm going to do is, because I know that this last take, I actually got it right, I'm going to select all that and delete it all. So 15 minutes of recording comes down to 3 minutes and 15 seconds. All right, so there we go. We've got the edited audio down. So now what we need to start thinking about is the mix. So let's have a listen to just the absolute raw recording.
Now, in the interests of full transparency, at this point I spent about 20 minutes mixing down the recording, only to discover afterwards that my screencasting software was not recording the audio output from Ardour. It's a learning process.
Okay, so rather than showing you the whole process of how I go about mixing it, we've got the finished article here. Here's one I made earlier. Let's look back at the finished article and we'll talk about how we got there. Right, but first, let's have a think about what I'm trying to do with this recording. These are acoustic covers that I play live at gigs all the time. what I'm trying to do is recreate that performance. Fundamentally, I want to keep this quite simple. The performance is just a voice and an acoustic guitar. That's all it is. That's how I perform live. Some people might be looking at this already and thinking, you're just doing a voice and an acoustic guitar. Why did you need 4 inputs? That's a fair criticism. It's quite possible to record an acoustic performance with just 1 microphone. In fact, I've done it. If you look back at some of my previous videos, I've done that before on this channel. Over the last few months since I started this channel, I've tried lots and lots of different setups, from 1 mic to 4 different mics. So I've experimented around with things. This is what I find at the moment captures the performance the best. Fundamentally, what I'm trying to do is capture a fairly simple acoustic performance. I want to keep it sounding as it would do if you were sat in front of me in this room listening to me play it. And this is how I've done it, with these 4 channels and all these effects. So first off, let's have a listen to it as sort of raw as we can get it. So I'm going to remove the panning that I've applied, and I'm going to turn off all the effects. This is what it sounds like with no panning, no effects, nothing, with the proviso that I have adjusted the levels slightly. So earlier, when I was setting up the microphones and I was saying I'm listening to these microphones on these headphones, and and I kept going, oh, this is sounding nice now. That's basically what I was listening to. What you're hearing now is what I was listening to at that point. It's just the raw recording. Now you'll see I've adjusted these levels, and there are some changes to the levels. That's because, if you remember, I kept saying, oh, that vocal could come up a little bit more. So rather than boosting the vocal here in the channel, what I've done is I've just done a relative volume change, and I've taken the guitar microphones down a little bit, just so that the vocal is relatively higher. And then this is the direct input from the guitar. The pickups on the guitar as you can see, they're right down in the mix, but we'll have a listen to those later, and you can have a think about whether you like them, or whether I should have left them out, or whether I should have left it in. But I've chosen to keep them in, and we'll have a listen to what they sound like soloed later. But let's have another listen back to it.
Are flowing out like endless rain into a paper cup. They slither while they pass, they slip away across the universe.
That's a decent recording as far as I'm concerned. That there, I could have left that exactly as it was and not done anything to it at all. Why not? That's what the performance sounded like. But you can do more. I can do more with it. I can change it ever so slightly to still maintain that original, that idea of a simple acoustic performance, but just tweak things a little bit to make it a little bit better, and make it work a little bit better on the video. And then one of the first things I've done is panned the guitar left and right. So I panned the neck mic all the way to the left, and I panned the bridge mic, the body mic that was pointing at the bridge of the guitar. I panned that all the way to the right. Let's have a listen to it without doing that.
Change my world.
And then listen to it as I pan them.
Images of broken light which dance around me like a million suns, and calls me on and on across the.
Now, what I hope you can notice, what I noticed straight away, is that although I haven't adjusted the volume of the guitar or the vocals there, immediately the vocal becomes more prevalent because it's got the space now, rather than all those signals coming bang down the center and being right on top of each other. Splitting the guitar left and right, hard panning left and right, has allowed the space for the vocal down the middle. So although the volumes haven't changed, the relative levels of those signals haven't changed at all, the vocal suddenly becomes more prevalent against the guitar.
Universe, thoughts meander like a restless wind inside a letterbox. They tumble blindly as they make their way across the universe.
Okay, it's a very well-defined technique, that 2 mics, pan one left, pan one right. Lots of people don't like it as a technique. I do. I think it sounds nice, so I do it quite a lot. Let's have a listen to the direct out from the guitar, because
as I mentioned during the setup, I wasn't sure whether I was going to use it at all, but let's have a listen to it on its own. So these are the pickups on the acoustic guitar. They're all right. There's nothing wrong with that sound. It's fine. Yeah, I wouldn't want to use that on its own. Listen to it with the guitars, with the mics. And of course, the vocal is spilling over onto the guitar mics as well, as expected. But listen to it without the DI. There's nothing wrong with that sound again, but just add that DI into it. Just fills it out a little bit more. I like it. That's why I often keep it in. I wouldn't want it any higher than that in the mix, but it just adds a little bit more body, a little bit more warmth. I like that sound. Okay, so that's the guitars. Neck and bridge panned hard left and hard right. The DI straight down the middle, very low in the mix, but it's there just to add that little body, little bit of warmth. Let's talk about the EQ, because as you can see on all the mics, I have applied some EQing. And when I start to open them up, I'm going to turn them back on now. Let's listen to them without first before I show you them, and then listen to them as I turn them on.
Nothing's gonna change my world.
Sounded weird that when I changed it, didn't I? As they came on, it sounded a bit odd. Let's show you what's actually happening on those EQ. I've just high passed it, just sort of everything below 100 hertz, 120 hertz down there. I've just sloped it off very gradually, and if we play that, you'll see the signal. There isn't much happening down here, but every so often you see something coming up here. Now, these little signals that come down here, and basically, this exact EQ has been applied to all the microphones. I've just high passed, just very gentle high pass on all these on all the microphones, on the vocal and on the guitars. The reason for doing that is, again, if I play it, you can see it.
Nothing's gonna change my world.
You won't hear that. You know, we're talking about really low frequency signals, and you won't be able to hear that on the final recording exactly. The problem is, because we're talking about stuff that's practically below the range of human hearing. 20 hertz is, you know, generally sort of thought to be the bottom of the range of human hearing. What those sounds are, it's not my voice and it's not the guitar, because my voice doesn't go that low. My voice doesn't go down to 20 hertz, 50 hertz. The guitar doesn't go down to sort of 20 hertz, 50 hertz. They're incapable of creating those sounds. What those sounds are is resonances within the room. It could be stuff like the fans from my computer. It could be a lorry passing the window outside, as I've mentioned before in previous videos. I'm next to a busy main road. The point is, those frequencies are there, and whilst you might not hear them on the final recording, if I apply any other effects to those signals, the effect's going to be applied to that frequency, even though it's very, very quiet, even though you can't really necessarily hear it. If I put a chorus on, if I put a reverb on, if I apply some compression, it's going to be applied to the whole signal, including those low frequencies. So that's why we high pass stuff. It's just to get that nonsense stuff out of the way that you don't really want to hear. You can't really hear it. You don't want it involved. It's just getting it out of the way. And that's all I'm doing. I'm applying, and if I show you the other channels, you'll see it's exactly the same. Just high passing at exactly the same point, pretty much, on all of them. Okay, so that's all I'm doing with the EQ. I'm not boosting any other frequencies. I'm just taking out that bottom end stuff that can cause a mix to sound quite muddy. So that's all I'm doing EQ wise. Now I've put compressors on all three of these tracks. I haven't done it to the DI, incidentally. The pickup on the guitar is against the wood of the guitar, and it's reacting to the vibrations of the wood. It doesn't pick up a lot of that low end, and it's so low in the mix anyway that I'm not concerned about high passing that guitar DI. So I've applied compression to all three of these tracks, or to all three of these microphones, and I'll show you exactly what I've done and why I've done it. First off, let's look at the NT5s on the neck and body. Incidentally, I'm using the Calf suite of plugins here, all open source, all available to download for other digital audio workstations as well. They're a standalone. They're not proprietary to Ardour or anything like that. You can download these and install them in whatever you like, in Logic or Pro Tools if you wanted to as well. They're really great as far as I'm concerned. I tend to use these all the time. Occasionally use some other reverbs and some other stuff, but I use these. These are my go-to plugins at the moment because they're very simple to use. They work well. They're fairly transparent in what they're doing. You can hear what they're doing quite clearly. There's nothing weird about them, and it's all pretty straightforward. The compression I'm applying to both the NT5 on the neck and the NT5 on the body is as it comes, as the plugin opens up. This is how the plugin opens up with these settings, and that's all I'm doing. I'm not applying anything else to the NT5 neck, and all I'm doing is it's set as the threshold is at -18. There's no makeup gain, and there's a ratio of 2:1. Very, very gentle compression. It's barely doing anything, but if you look, if I play it,
Nothing's gonna change.
see this number here. You can see ever so slightly it is doing something. It's ever so slightly just pulling the peaks down. And that's all I'm trying to do with it. I'm just trying to even out the signal just a tiny bit. It's barely doing anything, but as I've said, the whole point of this is to try and maintain the original performance exactly as it was. So all I'm doing is just bringing down the little peaks. My performance was such that there weren't any really weird peaks or any sort of boost to the signal that shouldn't be there. But all this is doing is just making sure that there's nothing peaking in an unpleasant way or coming through too harshly. It's just compressing that signal ever so slightly. Incidentally, if you've got no idea what I'm talking about in terms of compression, there are loads of videos out there on YouTube that explain exactly how compression works, and we'll go into lots of details about it. It's a very complex subject, but in a very simplistic sense, compression makes the loud bits quiet and the quiet bits loud. It reduces the dynamic range of a signal. I'm barely doing any compression on these tracks because I'm just doing the absolute bare minimum I need to keep everything nice and consistent across the whole song. Exactly the same compression settings on the body as well. I won't show you that. It basically looks exactly the same as the other one. The only slight change is on the vocal, which again, because I had that signal coming in quite low when I did the recording, the signal was quite low, so I've just boosted the makeup gain a little bit, only by 2.3 dB. Everything else exactly the same ratio, 2:1, and threshold -18. Everything else is kept exactly the same as guitars, but I've just boosted that makeup gain a little bit, and that's just to bring the level up a little bit more. So the relative levels of the guitar and vocals are the vocals have come up, have stayed at 0 dB on the mixer strip. This is what I'm talking about here. Stayed at 0 dB on the mixer strip, whilst the guitars have come down, and then I've boosted that compressor there as well. Right, so what else have I got? I have got some effects. I have used some effects. Let's have a listen to the vocal. If I go back to the beginning, let's sort of take it up to about there, so we can have a listen. And we'll solo the vocal. And again, you'll hear the guitar spill over.
Going out like endless rain.
So this is the
into a
soloed
paper
vocal.
cup. They slither while they pass, they slip away across the
I'm quite close to the
universe.
microphone, so
Pools
it's
of
quite a sort
sorrow,
of
waves of
dry,
joy are
close
drifting
mic.
through my open mind, possessing and caressing me.
But I put some reverb on it.
Jai Guru Deva Om.
So let's show you that reverb and what I'm using. Again, it's Calf reverb. These all ship with Ardour. They're open source plugins, free to anybody to use, and they're terrific. The only thing I have changed here is the room size. Everything else is the default settings as it applies, as it comes when you first switch it on. The only thing I've changed is room size. You've got various options here, and I've just gone for a small room size. Why have I gone for a small room size? Because I'm in a small room. It's that simple, ladies and gentlemen. And I think you'll agree, that's just added a little something to that vocal.
Nothing's gonna change my world. Nothing's gonna change my world.
Okay, so just a little bit of reverb added to the vocal to widen that sound out a little bit and make it sound nice. Now, when I play this song live, pubs and clubs around Chester in the northwest. I use my Marshall AS50 amp, generally speaking, and when I play this song, I put the chorus on. I don't know whether the original Beatles recording actually uses a chorus on the guitar. I listened to it again a bit earlier. I'm not a massive Beatles fan. I don't know their music very well, and only to the extent that everybody knows the Beatles songs. I don't know whether it's a chorus he's got on it. I think it's John Lennon playing, I imagine, what's his Gibson acoustic. It's almost got a sort of like sitar-y effect, because I think this was when they were in their Indian phase. But I'm pretty sure it's not actually a sitar playing it. I think it's his Gibson, and I suspect they've done some sort of chorus with it. I don't know. There will undoubtedly be a video somewhere on YouTube of somebody speaking extensively about exactly what they were doing when they recorded this song. I don't know, that's not the point. I'm not trying to replicate what the Beatles did. I just put a chorus on it because it sounded quite nice. I use the chorus when I play it live because I like the sound of it, and it sort of fits with the song. It makes sense in the context of the song. As you saw when I recorded this, I wasn't using the amp as well at all. I'm just playing the song just straight with my voice and my acoustic guitar. Nothing else is plugged in anywhere. So to apply a chorus, I'm doing it in production. I'm doing it in the box. So I've created a bus here, and I've added a Calf multi-chorus. So this is not something I'd used prior to mixing this, but good old Calf with their suite of plugins have a chorus effect. I don't think I messed about with this at all, to be honest. I just turned it on. What I did do, because I was applying it to a bus, I took down the dry signal completely. So the dry signal is not on the bus, so I'm only using the dry signal on the original, on the tracks, and I'm using it as a send effect. And then I boosted the actual amount of effect ever so slightly, just by 0.2 dB there. I think I just messed about with it a little bit. And then to actually apply the effect to the channel, and I'm only applying it to the guitar microphones, I just add it as a send effect here, and just add that much of the effect. So let's have a listen let's solo those guitars. And when I know I keep saying guitars plural, obviously there was only one guitar. I'm talking about guitar mics because there's two of them. So let's have a listen to those without the chorus. And of course my vocal is bleeding onto those guitar mics as expected. Let's turn it on. It's very, very subtle, and of course it's applied to my vocal as well, because my vocal is spilling out onto those guitar mics. It's very, very subtle, but it's there. If I take that off, if I take it off solo, that's the final mix. That's the whole thing.
Across the universe.
So that's it. That's the final mix. That's all I've done. It's a very simple mix. Very little done. I don't know. You know, it's relative, isn't it? Some people might be looking at this and thinking, "Oh man, that's so complicated. You've really done far too much there. It's ridiculous." Other people will be looking at this going, "You should have put another 16 compressors on the guitar DI or something." I don't know. There's no right and wrong answers. There's no right and wrong way to do this. There are good ways and bad ways of doing it. I've played around with different methods over the last few months. This is the one that I'm using at the moment because I think it sounds nice. And that's the mix that I've finished with, and that's the mix that you can hear on the video on YouTube. The only other thing I'll just point out very quickly is this is an EBU R128. There it is. This is just a loudness monitor. This displays EBU R128 is the EBU is the European Broadcasting Union. R128 is one of their I think it's their loudness standard essentially, and this is a way of measuring loudness. LUFS, I'm looking at the LUFS here. There's loudness units and various different options for what you can look at here on this. I'm looking at LUFS loudness unit full scale, and it's just to get an idea of how loud this song is. Now, what I mean by that is not how loud I'm listening to it in my headphones. I mean how loud the actual signal will be when it gets attached to a video or uploaded to YouTube or whatever. This is going on YouTube. This is quite a quiet recording. This is, but of course that makes sense because it was a quiet song when I played it. So I don't want it to be massively banging and peaking all over the place and, you know, into the red the whole time. That's not the point of playing a gentle Beatles acoustic song, is it? So this is quite a quiet recording. I think this sort of like tends to sit at around -14 lufs most of the time.
Nothing's gonna change my world.
A bit lower than that.
Nothing's gonna change.
It's maxing out at -14 actually, so it's really, really quiet. The reason I'm not worried about that is twofold. Firstly, I'm going to export this as a WAV file and take it into Kdenlive, which is the video editor, because obviously I'm syncing this up with the video. And if I need to boost the signal a little bit there, I can do. In fact, you can see actually I've already boosted the signal by 3 dB on the master fader anyway. And the second reason for not worrying too much about how loud it is, how quiet it is because every streaming service, including YouTube, is going to normalize any audio that's on it. And by that, I mean they're going to pull it all down to a consistent loudness. If I have this a bit quieter than their sort of standard loudness, they may well boost the signal a little bit. Which is fine. They can do that. It just means that the users of the YouTube platform have consistent volumes over you know, from one video to the next. It's not massively quiet on one video and they're massively loud on another. All streaming services do that, and there are extensive videos all over the place and information. There's whole websites dedicated to looking at how streaming services apply normalization and apply loudness levels to their services. But basically for me, the upshot of it is I don't really care how loud this is, because I know it's either going to be brought up or pulled down to whatever YouTube wants it to play at. So all I'm concerned about at the mixing stage and the exporting stage is that it sounds nice, and I think this sounds nice. So I'm going to export this now as a WAV file and take it into Kdenlive and start editing the video. Before we leave, actually, Ardour is a really top-notch bit of software for my money. I think it's absolutely brilliant. The support is excellent if you pay for it. If you do contribute to the project, then the support is excellent. I say that because we're about to go into Kdenlive, which is a completely different story. The support for Kdenlive is, to all intents and purposes, non-existent, which can be very frustrating. But apart from the odd bug here and there, it does work very well. Let's import some stuff. Now, I used 2 cameras and I recorded the audio separately. So one of the things I've discovered fairly early on in Kdenlive, because traditionally, back in the olden days, if you were wanting to sync up audio with video that had been recorded separately, that's what they used the clapper boards for. So you go and you could sync things up that way. And I used to do that with my videos until I realised that there was this really super little feature in Kdenlive, and I'm sure it exists in other editors as well, whereby if I take this WAV file here, which is the, like I say, that's the WAV we've just exported, and if I plop that down here, I can go set audio reference. It's scanned that WAV file and it's going to use that as a timecode reference. So the video has recorded its own audio, and so has the camcorder. I'm not going to use that audio at all. You can hear it as we're editing, but I'm not going to use the audio off the camera or the phone at all. But it is quite handy to look at it here visually. I can see that that's the take I used, and I can see it's the take I used because that bit of the graphical representation of the audio there matches up quite nicely with the actual graphical representation here. So I can see that's where I started on my little false start. So I'm just going to do a really, really rough edit here. I'm just going to say, so if you've seen any of my videos before, you'll know that I use the sort of like that main phone camera as the main shot, and then I use the cutaways, and it's just a point of visual interest. It's just to make things a little bit more interesting. There's no other reason for it other than that. And I'm going to plop this onto one of these video tracks. Now, one thing I really do struggle with quite a lot with this program is where it will allow me to put video tracks and where it will not allow me to put video tracks, and it seems to be completely arbitrary. In theory, where this audio video track here is selected because it's green, that should have gone onto there, but it didn't. If there was any sort of decent support for Kdenlive, I could try and get to the bottom of exactly
what the rules are around adding video and audio to different tracks, but I just can't for the life of me get my head around it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop that down there because it doesn't matter what track that's on, and then I'm going to go, you remember I set that as the audio reference by going right clicking, going set audio reference, and then if I come and click on this one and I go align audio to reference, if I zoom in on that, can you see how those WAV files are perfectly synced up now? So that video is now in sync with the audio through the wonders of technology. So I don't have to worry about things being out of sync. I know that that video is always going to be in sync. That's the video. That's the audio for that video. That's the audio off the camera, off the phone rather. Sorry, and I don't want to use it, so I'm going to mute that. I'm going to shrink that track. Next, I'm going to put the whole of that edited down clip of the second camera on. If anybody out there is an expert at Kdenlive and can explain to me the theory behind where I'm allowed to place stuff, do drop us a comment because I would love to know. Right, so finally we've achieved what I actually set out to achieve some time ago, which is that we've got 3 audio tracks, 2 video tracks, all in sync with each other. I don't want to listen to the video off either of the cameras, so I'm going to mute both of those tracks and shrink them up. That's the only audio track I'm interested in. So now if I watch this, and you'll see that the only video that's visible at the moment is this. So that's my second camera. That's the way that it's set up. First off, let's line it up so that all the videos start at the same time. So I want the videos to start. What I will do now is I'm going to drop in the that intro, the little ident thingy that I put at the beginning. I'm going to insert another video track to do that on, and I'm just going to plop that down there. Now you can see it's actually added this an audio track down here. That's just because that bit of video exported by default with an audio track, and there's nothing actually on that. You can see that this empty bit of audio is associated with this clip here, so if I try and drag these down here, it's not going to let me move that start of that audio onto that track. But what I can do, because I'm not interested in keeping that audio, is I can ungroup this clip and then I can just delete that bit of blank audio that's associated with the ident. What I normally do here, because of the way this ident works, is I'm going to create a color clip of just pure white. 5 seconds will be fine. I'm going to pop that down here, because what I do with that, I can shorten this down, and it just means that when I apply a wipe, which I'm going to do, it's wiping from the color clip. It's wiping from pure white rather than trying to wipe from the, there's already a fade out. So if I show you what this, it's just my logo fading in and fading out. Because that fades out right at the end there, I don't want to try and wipe into the video on the fade out of that. And I'm going to go insert composition. I'm going to put a wipe in. So what that's doing is that's just wiping from that color to the next video. There we go. That's just go. It's very quick, barely noticeable, but it just means it's not an abrupt cut. It's just slightly gentler. Right, so then we get down to the business of just editing the video. I'm going to do it on that. You can see how you can almost see where the little peak is there on that. Nothing's going to. I'm going to try it there.
Oh, nothing's gonna change my world. Nothing's gonna change my world.
I don't know, maybe you think these cutaways are a crap idea. I don't know. I just wanted to do something a little bit extra, make it slightly more visually interesting. To be honest, it's one of those things where I've been listening to myself for long enough that I don't cringe myself inside out when I hear myself sing or play anymore. But I still absolutely hate looking at myself on video. I really don't like it at all. So anything I can do to distract myself from having to watch myself, but
Nothing's gonna change my world.
So I've just picked up the scissor tool here, and I'm just going to do a cut there, go back to the grab tool, and then I can pull this back along here, which means that. So right, I will. I'll go through and I'll put all these cuts in where I want them to put, where I want them to go in. But let's just show you some effects quickly and how they work in this, because I usually apply just some really basic effects just to brighten the, not brighten the image. I do a bit of contrast and I apply this thing called a vignette. So these are the effects here. I'll show you how we can apply them. You can apply them in various ways. Let's find the vignette and I'll show you how I do that. So vignette. So this is the effect. So to apply this, I can either drag it onto the track itself, and that will apply it to all clips in the track, or I can attach it, just drag it onto the actual clips in the timeline, and adjust it from there, so it'll just go onto that little clip and it wouldn't affect that clip. The second, it will just affect this clip and not this clip, for example. But what I'm going to do, so that it just applies it to everything on the timeline, because I know I want to apply some sort of universal effects of this vignette thing that I'm going to show you now, and a contrast, a slight raising of the contrast that I'm going to do. I'm going to apply that to both of these video tracks, both of these videos and both these video tracks. You can apply it directly to the clips in the bin here. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to whack this vignette on to here. And you can see how it sort of puts this sort of shadow around it. So, and then I can play around with the settings here. Now, when I mentioned earlier that the support of Kdenlive is non-existent, so I've encountered this really weird problem where I created a preset for this effect. I just found the settings that I liked, and I saved it as a preset. In fact, you can see it here. See vignette. I can't use that anymore, because every time I do that, if I apply the preset, the clip that I've applied that preset to disappears as soon as you render the file. I have tried to get some support from Kdenlive to explain to me why this happens, and nobody's come forward to explain it at all. So it looks like presets don't work. So I'm just going to try and avoid presets. So I'm going to just bugger about with this until it sort of looks right. I think that looks okay. I think I'm fairly happy with that. I mean, it is really subtle, but it just softens the edges of things, and I think it's quite nice. Right, let's whack a bit of contrast on this as well, on these. I really want to bring out the shine on my head, really enhance that bald spot. What I sometimes do is make that cutaway camera grayscale as well. I make it black and white. Might do that, might not. Let's see how we go. That's as much as I do, generally speaking. Like I say, I've experimented with sort of like film noise and making things black and white in the past. The whole approach to these acoustic covers is keeping it fairly simple, so I don't want to dick about too much. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go through and I'm going to make more of these. Just keep cutting between the main camera and the cutaway. Right. So the next thing is the artwork, for want of a better word. Which is when I create the thumbnail and I create those little bits of graphic that pop up and say, you know, bransbycentral.com, and give the title of the song. I am not a graphic artist, but I use this GIMP. So this is an open source bit of software again. This is, for want of a better word, the open source Photoshop. I use this quite a bit now. I am in no way, I am barely even a beginner with this. Again, if you want tutorials on this, there are loads of tutorials all over the interwebs and YouTube. So I'm going to create a new image with a transparent background. So all I want to do here is create a little graphic which says The Beatles Across the Universe acoustic cover by Bransby. And I do these little, if you've seen any of my videos, you'll see that sort of little skew-if box thing. And I use that because it's easy to do. So I pick up this little tool here, which is called the Paths tool. There you go. Learn something new every day. Right, let's create this bloody box. There we go. I've created a path. And I go to the paths bit here and I go path to selection. I've discovered all this from a YouTube tutorial. Let's go and fill that with some black. Boom. Let's make another box inside it. Put that path to a selection. Let's fill that in with white. Wow, graphics coming together right before our eyes. This is amazing, man. This is the font I use. It's called Cocoa Goose. I bet there are super users of GIMP out there just crying right now of what could have been. I'm going to export this as a PNG. We're going to stick it in the right folder because I'm quite good at keeping my shit together. Use all the default settings. So that is just that little image that I've got there. Right, so what are we doing with that? Let's go back to Kdenlive. What we're going to do is we're going to create a title clip. I'm going to add an image to this title clip. So this is just project folder. Plop that down here. Make sure it's centered. Create title. Now all I need to do is on the same track I put the ident, lob that down here, fade it in, fade it out, so it looks like this. What I sometimes do, if I don't look too much of a dick, is I use that as the thumbnail sometimes. Do I look serene enough there? What do we think? Shall I use that as the thumbnail? Yeah, I'm not good at judging whether I don't look a dick, to be honest. So I'm just going to assume that that's okay. I'm quite happy with that. You can see, look, man playing guitar, doing a Beatles cover. So I'm going to use that as the thumbnail. I'm going to extract frame, which saves this as, if I put it into the right folder, where's me across the areas? So I'm just going to save it as that. But that's far too big for YouTube's purposes as a thumbnail. That's too big a file. So what I'll do is I'll go back to GIMP. So I'm going to go with that one as the thumbnail. But as a PNG and that size, we're only looking at 66% of the actual size. So it's way too big to use as a thumbnail. So all I'll do is I'll go File, Save for Web. I'm going to save it as a JPEG. Okay, we've done it. We've created the artwork. Oh, now hang on, one more thing to do, isn't there? There's a new title clip to create, which is this bit that I always just whack on at the end to encourage people to go to my website. Not that anybody ever does. Fade it in, fade it out. Let's have a look. Right, so that's it. All we need to do now is render that out. So, render. I started using this WebM format for uploading to YouTube. I could do it in MP4. I mean, there's all sorts of options for me here in Kdenlive to do it. Render to file. Right, so to recap, we mixed it in Ardour. We then took all the video and the audio into Kdenlive, put it all together, created the artwork, for want of a better word, in GIMP, and everything's ready to go. Once this is finished exporting, once this is finished rendering, we've got a video and a thumbnail ready to upload to YouTube.
Okay, thanks for watching. I hope you found that useful. This wasn't intended to be a tutorial. I've covered some quite detailed things very quickly here. I haven't gone into a lot of detail, but if there's anything you'd like to see in more detail, just drop a comment below and let me know. The idea behind this was to let you see a bit of my process, what I go through, what I've learned over the time that I've started this channel. This channel's only been going since April of this year. But I feel like I've learned a lot in that time. But what I also wanted to show you was what's possible using entirely open source software, because there's lots of tutorials online for how to do this kind of thing. But I don't feel like there's a lot of joined up thinking about how you can achieve an awful lot using open source software. So I hope it was useful in that sense. Let me know, drop a comment down below, like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, take care. Bye-bye.